girls. So our book this week is called A Turkey for Thanksgiving, and it is by Eve Bunting and illustrated by Diane DeGroat. So the author does what? Writes the words. And what does the illustrator do? Draws the pictures. So I already have 2 clues that lets me know that this book is a fiction book. I see characters that look like animals because I've never seen this kind of character or animal wear clothes before. So that gives me a good hint. And I see illustrations. When we read this story, you're going to be pausing the video throughout to talk about some of our story elements. Our first 2 story elements, character and setting, come at the beginning of the book. So those are the 2 things that I want you to be listening for in the beginning of the story. So A Turkey for Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving morning. Mr. Moose helped Mrs. Moose set the Thanksgiving table. Mrs. Moose set the Thanksgiving. Mrs. Moose set the I'm going to start over. It was Thanksgiving morning. Mr. Moose helped Mrs. Moose set the Thanksgiving table. Sheep will sit here. He likes a chair that is straight up and down, Mr. Moose said. Rabbit here, Porcupine here, Mr. and Mrs. Goat here. He smiled at his wife. Isn't it nice to have friends to share Thanksgiving with? Mrs. Moose set 2 paper pilgrims, one at each end of the table. She placed the turkey with its great fan of tail between the candles and stood back. They look good, my dear, Mr. Moose said. Mrs. Moose sighed. Yes, but, we're going to stop here because the middle's coming next. So pause the video and I want you to tell about the beginning of the story. Who are the characters that we see so far, those main characters, and what's the setting? What's happening? Okay, now we're getting to the middle of the story, so let's be thinking about the events that happen in the middle and if there is a problem. Mrs. Moose sighed. Yes, but I wish we had a real turkey. Everyone always has a turkey for Thanksgiving. Everyone but us. Mr. Moose nuzzled Mrs. Moose's head. Well, that won't do. I will go this minute and find you a turkey for Thanksgiving. Mr. Moose put on his cap and went out. Mist wandered through the bare trees. The cold made his nose water. Rabbit poked his head from the rabbit hole. Mr. Moose, is it dinner time? Not quite yet. Mrs. Moose wants a turkey. I'm off to find one. Rabbit joined him in 3 quick hops. I'll come too. Moose's warm breath hung white in front of him. Snow crunched under his hooves and made little holes that Rabbit jumped over. I see the goats, Rabbit said. Mr. Goat raised his head and spat out the tin can he was chewing. Is it dinner time? He called. Not till I find a turkey, Mr. Moose said. Oh, we saw one down by the river, Mrs. Goat told him. And Mr. Goat added, a fat one. Okay, so who joined Moose? That's right, the rabbit. And now who's joining Mr. Moose to go find that turkey? The goats. Let's see what animal's going to come next. The goats leaped down from their porch. Well, show you. Sheep was further up the hillside, looking around as a fur ball in his winter coat. Is it dinner time? He bellowed. First, I have to find a turkey, Mr. Moose bellowed back. There's a turkey nest on the riverbank, Sheep called. Wait for me. The earth smelled of ice and moss as they crunched along. Above them a crow hung, black as a puff of wood smoke. Porcupine was hiding in the underbrush. "It's you," he said, and put his quills down. "We're off to get a turkey for Mrs. Moose." Mr. Moose explained. "Do you want to come?" "I'm slow," Porcupine said. "Pick me up on your way back." "Who'd want to pick you up?" Sheep asked, and laughed his bleat of laugh. "I'll wait," Porcupine told Mr. Moose. So be thinking about those animals in the middle that came to join Mr. Moose. They saw Turkey's nest right away, and Turkey himself peering over the top of it. "Turkey, Turkey," Mr. Moose called in his sweetest voice. "Ah!" Turkey blundered from his nest and ran. Mr. Moose lumbered after him. "Turkey, don't run. We just want you for Thanksgiving dinner." Turkey ran faster. Oh no, look at the signs that says, "Do not disturb. Come back after Thanksgiving." No turkey here. Those poor turkeys, they're always having to hide and disguise themselves so they don't get eaten for Thanksgiving. Mr. Moose saw the red and blue sheen of Turkey's neck. Turkey's tail brushed crumbs of snow behind him as he tried to fly. "And too fat," Mr. Goat said. Turkey's legs bent in the middle as he fell, and Mr. Moose put a booted hoof on his head and smiled his great toothy smile. "I hope you don't have plans for Thanksgiving, Turkey." Oh no, this might be a good time to pause and talk about some of those problems in the middle of the story. Remember, stories can have more than one problem. And talk about the animals, sequence those, put those in order for us in the middle. All right, let's see if we can figure out the end of the story now. He helped Turkey up. "My wife won't mind that you're too fat," he said. "Let's go. It's getting close to dinner time." They marched Turkey in front. "I'm sorry about this, for I can see you don't want to come," Mr. Moose said. "But I must insist. A promise is a promise." There was a wreath of dried fruit on the moose's door. Inside the house, it was filled with Thanksgiving smells. Mr. Moose hid Turkey behind him. "Look who I brought, Mrs. Moose," he said. "Sheep, the goat, rabbit, and porcupine. And ta-da! He pushed Turkey around in front of him. "For you, a turkey for Thanksgiving." Mrs. Moose clapped her hooves. "I'm so happy to have you, Turkey." "Thank you, Mr. Moose. Now everything is perfect." Shall we sit?" Sheep asked, heading for the straight up and down chair. "Let's." Mrs. Moose pointed. "Rabbit here, Porcupine here, Mrs. and Mr. Goat here. And look, I brought a chair from the other room in hopes of Turkey." A chair?" Turkey stammered. "Right next to me," Mrs. Moose said. "Light the candles, Mr. Moose." So what did Turkey really think he was going to be? The Thanksgiving dinner. But Mrs. Moose just wanted him to join their Thanksgiving dinner. There were balls of acorns and alfalfa sprouts, dried since summer. There was willow bark and cured grasses and wild parsley. There were pressed leaves, thin and pale as new ice on a pond. "I hope you find something here to your liking, Mr. Turkey," Mrs. Moose said. "I wasn't sure of your taste." "You are so kind to worry about my taste," Turkey said. "I thought you would be worrying about how I would taste." "Heavens, no!" Mr. Moose smiled. His big tooth smiled and filled everyone's cup with cold spring water. It's so nice to have friends around the table at Thanksgiving. Turkeys waddle wobble. It's even nicer to be at your table and not on it, he said. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, Turkey. Okay, talk with your teacher or at home about how the story ended. How the story ended.